Welcome back, everybody. This week we have for you yet another very special guest. I want everyone to welcome to the show Blake McCarthy. Welcome to the show, Blake.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. It does. I mean, I've as far as like movies and television and comics go, for me, if you put giant monsters fighting each other, I'm there. So I heard kaiju's and a story to read. So here we are, man.
Listen, I got Mike to read a Marvel comic by saying there's gonna be Avengers and giant mech suits fighting.
That's
kaiju,
all it takes.
so.
Like, I won't read a Marvel book, but they put them in mech suits this year, so I was like, I gotta pick it up and read it, man.
Yeah.
Thanks for
being. Check it out, right?
Yeah, oh, for sure. And I mean, before we talk about the giant monsters, though, we like to get everyone's origin story. So tell us a little bit about that. Like, have you always liked comics, reading comics, and what made you want to write one?
Yeah. So I have always kind of liked comics. I grew up reading them. I was lucky when I was a kid, my dad read them, and so one of the big kind of exciting things growing up was when we get to go to the comic book store with him, and my brother. And so I was always, just kind of like a special experience, and really, I think, kind of ingrained that love of comics. And it was a lot of Marvel books growing up. That was mostly what he read. Spider-Man was the first one that I really, got into. And I still like Marvel, but it's definitely cool seeing this whole indie scene now. And I used to pretty much only read Marvel, and then I actually stopped reading comics for a little bit, been back into about past like 4 or 5 years, and really getting more into some of the indie stuff too. And it's just cool to see how much different stuff is out there.
Yeah, Chris and I mean, we've been in it for a while now, but it warms our hearts to see like how great indie comics are doing now, and like all the projects that are getting funded on Kickstarter. So I mean, you saw that too, and it made you want to like tell one of your own stories, right? Is that kind of motivated you to do that, or?
Yeah. So I've kind of always liked, writing. And when I kind of got back into comics a couple years ago, I started thinking about wanting to do my own. And I didn't really have any specific way I wanted to do it. I just wanted to make one. And then as I just kind of learned about Kickstarter, learned about the indie scene there, and seeing, like you said, all the books that are getting funded, and just how many different creators are going there for so many different projects, it just seemed like a good fit, and so far it's worked out really well, so I'm glad that I did.
Yeah. You're funded already, right? So
Yes. Yeah, that was nice. We funded in our first week, which as a first time creator was pretty exciting. So
yeah, without a fan base behind you, that's pretty huge, dude. So congrats on that.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate it. It's been a learning experience for sure, but it's going well. I can't complain so far.
Yeah, that's got to be a huge sigh of relief right there, knowing at least it's funded.
Yes, exactly. That was the biggest thing, and just that putting it out there at all was just like, all right, here we go. We'll see what happens. But fortunately, the response has been real positive, and I mean, it's been good. So
that's great, dude. So give us the rundown. What is Territory? What is the story that you're doing?
Definitely. So this campaign is for the first issue. It's planning a 6-issue miniseries, but basically it's in kind of a post-apocalyptic Pacific Northwest, Oregon, kind of specifically, and it's after some sort of nuclear event has happened, and this is far past the event, and now people kind of just survive in tribes, and there's these giant kaiju, these giant monsters. They're called behemoths in the story, and people worship them as their gods, and basically their lives revolve around this kind of tribal worship of these giant creatures. And the book focuses on one tribe and one monster, but there's some other ones that kind of come up as well. So
that's pretty cool. So you have like these people there's different styles to each tribe and like what they worship.
Yeah, and so that I actually kind of tried to do some research on some of the North American tribes, kind of in some of the different areas, and the first book focuses on kind of the Pacific Northwest and some of the tribes. It's a blend, like a mixture of some of the cultures from up there, but then some of the other tribes that come up later, are stylistically different and kind of behave differently too. So tried to incorporate some of that, as well as making the monsters kind of specific to the regions and stuff too.
Okay.
And when you're doing the different regions and different tribes, like what comes first for you? Do you have all these kaiju you want to do, and then you kind of blend it into the area and then make the tribe fit it, or does the tribe, like, how do you develop that atmosphere?
So I had this one kind of I had the idea for the general story first, and then as I kind of figured out how I wanted that story to take shape, I kind of picked the area, and then I picked some of the animals, like native animals, kind of, and came up with the kaiju first, and then kind of did the research on the tribes and came up with that. So it was kind of first the story, then the area, and then kind of the kaiju, and then the tribes were kind of that last aesthetic piece.
And I think it's interesting too that you have like people worshiping them, because most of the kaiju stuff you see is like the humans want to fight them or like get them off of the planet, right? They don't want them here anymore.
Totally.
Yeah. So they almost have like a religion based around these. But do the kaiju feel the same way?
Yeah. So the kaiju do not, and that's one of the points of the book, is that the humans really worship them, and our lives revolve around them, but they just go about their normal lives like we're insignificant to them, basically.
Okay.
And that was kind of one of the themes I wanted to explore, and I think it's interesting you brought that up, because that was one thing I really like because I'm a big kaiju fan, but I agree that seems how they're portrayed. But just in my mind, if you were to see this giant creature that we are powerless against, like, to me that would be a godlike creature on Earth. Like, people would see that kind of power and be awed by it. And this is just kind of trying to figure out, if we had that situation where these creatures are now dominant, this is the main power in the world, how would people react? How would they worship it? How would they interact with it?
Yeah,
it kind of harkens back to like the Titans.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't think about that. Yeah, because like the newest Godzilla movie came out like last month, but it always focuses on the people looking at him and be like, oh, this is terrifying. Or like you'll have like a biologist that wants to study them, but you never have someone saying like, oh, God is hit the earth, and no matter what they throw at him, they're like, oh, we should just keep throwing bigger bombs. Nobody stops to thinking like, oh, this is our ruler now. We should just maybe let him do his thing and not build our society so close to him where he's stepping and breathing fire and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's because I always kind of like the more like kind of natural primal depiction of kaiju. Like it's cool when I love watching them fight, and it's cool when they're almost kind of like superhero like, but that's that force of nature aspect, I think, is something that is kind of underexplored. And I really wanted to kind of focus on that. And then, like you said, I think once we realized like we couldn't beat something, like a lot of people would go to follow it, and then how that would bleed down into our society and all that.
Really cool. So yeah, let's talk about the Kickstarter.
I wanted to start real quick, Mike. Give a shout out to your creative team. Who are you working with on this?
Yeah, because the art's amazing.
Yes, the art is incredible, and the main artist is Chris Sassman. He's an illustrator out of South Africa, and he is awesome. It's crazy. He hasn't been doing this for very long, just kind of seriously for a little over a year. But working with him has been awesome, because not only is his art great, but he's also he asks a lot of questions. He wants to understand the story. He wants to kind of tell the story visually. He's not just reading what I'm sending him and just drawing whatever's on the paper. He's trying to understand it, and he's had a lot of good suggestions. And I think I think he's got a lot of potential. I think his stuff is going to go way beyond this book, and I'm excited that we got him to do this. And then the colors are by Ichsan Ansori, who is out of Indonesia. He'd actually worked with Chris before, and they had a good kind of working relationship. And Ichsan's been great too. I mean, again, very talented colorist. Asked a lot of questions, very good creative partner. And then the letters are by Marco Della Verde, who is kind of the veteran of the group, which has been really nice to have, because not only is he a great letterer, but he's also been able to kind of help guide the project, answer questions, point things out like, hey, we need to do this, or this isn't going to work. And as a new creator, it's been awesome to have somebody that can recognize a lot of those things and steer us in the right direction.
Okay. Yeah, so he's bringing all the experience to the table of like, oh, maybe we shouldn't set the page up like this or something.
Exactly, and and even just little like file type stuff, printing stuff, just like really the whole thing. Because I mean, as a first time creator, like it's been such a huge learning process, and he's been extremely helpful in just being able to point just the process itself, knowing how these things get made, and how they go from script to a final product, and how to get it there.
Yeah, it's crazy to me you say that. Sassman's only been doing this for a year, because we got 3 pages on the Kickstarter you guys can all check out, and his panel layout's awesome, and his panel to panel storytelling in just these 3 pages is top tier. Like, it's really great.
Yeah, because we talk about the art telling the story for itself, and I mean there's not a whole lot of dialogue in these pages, but like his, I want to say like cinematography almost, where he chooses to do those angles, is really good. I mean, it looks awesome.
I agree, and it's awesome because I mean, I just seen some of his stuff on Instagram and Reddit and stuff, and I knew that his art was good, but I like his visual storytelling is like you guys said, just really next level, and I like that cinematography. This feels like a cinematic comic to me. That's kind of what I was going for. I wanted that big monster movie kind of feel to it, and he's really captured that and brought it to life, which has been awesome.
Yeah, it looks great. So you have a couple pledge tiers or reward tiers here, so let's talk about those.
Yeah, so just kind of as I decided to go with Kickstarter, look back and I liked, and just tried to figure out what things I liked from them, what things seemed to be successful, what would interest me, and then just kind of built up. So we've got some just the basic, a digital version, a PDF, the physical copy. We have a couple of variant artists who have also been awesome. Martha Womersley and Tanner Wright both did some really cool variants. One of them is kind of an homage to an old Godzilla poster. The other variant, and so we've got a couple of those, and then just did a package with all the covers, and we're doing some art prints too. And then because Chris is such a talented artist, and one thing he kind of wanted to do was we've also offered up some original art, some pages from the comic, because he does hand draw stuff, a chance for him to just kind of draw you in the style of the book, or the biggest tier is that you can actually be drawn into the next issue of the book as a background character.
That's really cool.
Which artist did the neon cover?
Her name's Martha Womersley.
Yeah,
that cover is awesome.
Honestly, I was about to back just digitally, and then I saw that cover, and I was like, "Holy shit!"
I 100% agree, and she's been really cool to work with too. So she is she does all sorts of basically just kind of kaiju and monster art, and I sent her this idea, and at the time when I talked to her, she hadn't posted a lot of color stuff. It was more kind of black and white, but even her lines were so good. And first she sent me the black and white version, but then she's like, "Hey, I just have an idea for the color. Can I, kind of try this and send it to you and see what you think?" And then she sent that over, and I was like, "Yeah, that's awesome. We gotta go with that."
That's the one. Yeah. It reminds me of those almost like the Spencer gift shop poster. Like you'd buy them and you'd fill them in with those neon markers. They're really big in the 90s, early 2000s. You know what I'm talking about, Chris? Oh, yeah. That's exactly what it reminds me of, but it's awesome. Like, everybody's got to check this cover out. It looks amazing.
Totally. It's almost like, and I even hate to say it, but it's almost like Lisa Frank, if Lisa Frank was even more extreme, just because it's got, it's so many colors, so in your face, but it's got, it works so well with her style, and she did an awesome job.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really cool. So I mean, you're already funded, but I mean that doesn't mean to stop donating, right? I mean, there's so many other things we can do here,
including stretch goals.
Yeah, stretch goals. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so when we got funded, got 2 stretch goals. Didn't want to go too crazy with that. Again, just since it's my first campaign, just trying to manage stuff and don't want to get too involved with things other than the book itself. But so for the stretch goals, just wanted to kind of think about what I like to see as kind of a premium kind of thing in a comic, and seeing that behind the scenes, some of the concept art, some of the script, some of the work in progress pages, and kind of being able to see that process. And so our first stretch goal we'll include a bunch of that in the digital version, and then our next stretch goals will include some of those pages in the physical version as well.
Okay, yeah, that's pretty cool. And we've talked about this with a lot of Kickstarter projects. Like, even though you hit those stretch goals and stuff, and it's already funded, you can use the funds for this one to make the next issues will be more achievable or easier to achieve with Kickstarter, right? Like, you can use those funds for more issues.
Yeah, and so this one being kind of the first project, and we didn't plan anything too specific beyond this, just because we kind of wanted to see how it went and figure it out. But we've been fortunate, and it's been a pretty big success so far, and we're hoping to have the pretty much when this one gets done, start working on the next issue and have that ready for later this year. So hopefully we can kind of get a jump start on it, and I'm excited to get going because I think the whole team is on board and ready to go again, so we'll be able to keep the momentum.
That's awesome. I guess without spoiling anything, because you talked about regions and stuff like that. Is there any coastal region that has a kaiju, like water style kaiju? Really? Okay.
There is. So that's actually the next issue is going to be the one that kind of touches on that, and I won't get into too much, too many spoilers, but there is going to be a couple different kaiju that show up throughout the series. There'll be some kaiju battles. Definitely wanted to have that kind of action in there, because that's the good stuff.
Yeah,
that's. But it's also, it will be. Starting with the next issues where you start to see kind of what the different people worshiping the different kaiju, how that influences them, and that kind of tribal lifestyle, and yet basically kind of clashing ideologies, clashing religions, and how that kind of shapes some of the characters.
Awesome. Yeah.
So, Blake, before we decide to send people to follow you further, one quick thing outside of comics, I saw on the page you're also a firefighter. Is this true?
Yeah, firefighter here in Colorado for a little over 3 years now. So,
all right. So I just want to say thanks for your service and big props out to you for doing that.
Yeah, that's awesome, man.
Oh, well, thank you. My second generation, my dad was a firefighter, and it's a good job. I enjoy doing it, and it's allowed me to make this, which has been awesome. So I appreciate you guys.
Cool. Yeah. Awesome. So if we want to send our viewers or listeners to follow you and what you're doing, where can we send them? Sorry.
So Twitter and Instagram are kind of the big 2 social media platforms I'm on. Both of them got the same handle. It's just BMC Comics. So BMC and COMICS on both Twitter and Instagram, and then on Kickstarter is pretty much where I'm at right now, and that's kind of where try to post updates on both those, and then obviously the Kickstarter will be where the projects themselves are.
Awesome. Yeah, and everybody, I will have those links down below in the show notes, so make sure to check it out. The book looks awesome. Make sure to get that variant cover because it's amazing.
Yeah.
Yes. And Blake, thanks so much for being on the show. Hopefully we'll be able to have you for issue 2 when that's ready to happen.
Yeah, thanks.
Definitely. Man. Yeah, I appreciate you guys having me on, and have a good one.